All right, so you've got an ant problem, huh? Looks like you've been doing your homework, sent over a bunch of stuff about it, companies like JAE, Flick, advice from KiwiCare, even some tips from Mortine. So let's get into it. What's the best way to deal with these ants in your New Zealand home?
Yeah, what's really interesting to see, all these different approaches you've got here, from like DIY solutions to, calling the professionals. Each source has its own angle, but I think there's one thing they all agree on.
What's that?
You got to understand ants, how they behave, what they're drawn to, that kind of thing.
Okay, so let's start breaking this down. We've got JAE, over 50 years in the home maintenance biz. Their website is all about experience, experience, experience.
50 years, wow, that's quite a while. It definitely suggests they know what they're doing, especially when it comes to pests, the ones you commonly find in New Zealand homes. Plus, they really highlight their nationwide coverage, so they're accessible to pretty much everyone in the country.
Then there's KiwiCare. They call themselves pest and garden experts. They seem to be all about really understanding the pests.
Yeah, exactly. Like they actually provide quite a bit of information on ant behavior, how they operate, what their weaknesses are. That kind of stuff can be really helpful, whether you're thinking DIY or maybe calling in a professional, just understanding them better.
And speaking of professionals, we've got Flick. Over 100 years in the pest control game. That's impressive.
Yeah, over a century, that's something. They really focus on those like specialized ant control solutions, tailored treatment plans. They even talk about eco-friendly options, so that's pretty cool.
Yeah.
They definitely seem to be positioning themselves as, a company that's keeping up with the latest in pest control practices.
So this is kind of interesting. JAE, they've got these upholstery cleaning guides on their website. It got me thinking, are they hinting at like a DIY approach to certain pest problems, or are they kind of subtly suggesting that sometimes you just need to call in the pros?
Yeah, it's almost like they're trying to give homeowners the basic knowledge, like empowering them a little bit. But at the same time, recognizing that some pest problems, they just need like a more specialized, approach.
So maybe DIY is okay for small ant issues. But when it gets out of control, time to call the experts.
Yeah, that seems to be the message. And it makes sense. DIY, it can be a good starting point, for prevention or maybe just tackling the problem early on. But, the professionals, they've got access to stronger treatments, more potent stuff, and they just understand ant behavior at a deeper level, right? They can identify those sneaky little entry points that you might miss.
Plus, I bet they have all the cool gadgets and stuff.
Right. Flick mentioned something called a smart digital monitoring system. Uses tech to predict and prevent those rodent infestations. They seem to be really embracing that whole innovation side of things.
Okay, let's talk specifics. Ant control methods. Both Flick and JE mention bait stations and something called targeted nest treatments.
Yeah, those are pretty common. Pretty effective, too. Bait stations, they use, poison to attract and eliminate the ants, while those targeted nest treatments involve applying insecticides directly to the colony itself.
Makes sense. I'm guessing those barrier methods, sealing up cracks and stuff, are also important to stop them from getting in the first place.
Oh, absolutely. Both JAE and Flick definitely imply that you got to take a comprehensive approach, which likely includes that, finding and sealing those entry points. That's like step one.
Now, there's this story on Flick's website about a client who had both earwigs and cockroaches. What happens when you have multiple pest problems going on at the same time?
Oh, yeah, good point. To service like Flick, they can probably tackle multiple issues, simultaneously. More like holistic solution instead of going after each problem one by one.
So if you got ants marching in and other creepy crawlies joining the party, maybe it's time to get some backup.
That's one way to put it. It's all about, assessing the situation. How bad is it? Do you need that professional help, that extra firepower?
Okay, let's talk about choosing a provider. What are the key things to consider?
Well, experience and reputation are definitely big ones. JAE and Flick, they both really emphasize how long they've been around, which, suggests they've got a pretty good track record.
What about like specialization and, the range of services they offer?
Yeah, those are important too. Flick, for example, they really highlight those specialized ant control solutions, which shows they really understand, the ins and outs of dealing with ants specifically.
And let's not forget those customer reviews. Flick's website has some pretty glowing reviews, always a good sign, right?
Right. Those reviews can give you a good feel for the quality of service, how responsive they are, how effective their treatments are. It's all about peace of mind. You want a company you can trust.
So we're looking for experience, expertise, a good reputation, and positive feedback from customers. Seems like a pretty solid checklist. Now, what about Mortein? You know Mortein, they're like a classic when it comes to pest control, right? So we got to see what they have to offer.
Oh, yeah, for sure. They've got tons of different products, so you might find some good DIY solutions there. It's always good to have options.
Okay, so we've talked about experience, specialization, customer reviews, all super important when you're choosing a pest control company.
Yeah.
And we've looked at different methods like those beat stations, those targeted nest treatments, things like that.
Right, and we talked about that whole DIY versus, calling in the pros. DIY can work if it's a small problem or just for prevention.
Yeah.
But those professionals, they've got that extra level of expertise.
Yeah.
And they can really target their solutions. Really valuable when you've got a bigger infestation.
Exactly. And like KiwiCare says, understanding ant behavior is so key. You know your enemy, you're a better fighter, whether you're going it alone or calling in reinforcements, right?
Absolutely. It's all about knowing their vulnerabilities. Like, did you know some ant species are attracted to sweet stuff, while others, they're all about the protein? That can help you choose the right bait, put it in the right spot, get them every time.
So if I'm getting this right, DIY methods are a good starting point, especially if it's a minor ant problem or you're just trying to prevent them in the first place.
Yeah, you got it.
Yep.
Simple things like sealing up those cracks, keeping your kitchen sparkling clean, storing your food properly. It all helps. Makes your home less attractive to those little guys.
But if things get worse or you just don't want to deal with it yourself, calling in a professional is always there.
Oh, for sure. For sure. They've got the knowledge, the experience, the tools. They can handle even the toughest infestations, They'll figure out where they're coming from, use those targeted treatments, and even give you advice on how to keep them from coming back.
Okay, so when we're choosing a professional, we said experience, specialization, good reputation, positive customer reviews.
Right. Do your research. Find a company you trust. It's worth it.
Remember, Flick mentioned that smart digital monitoring system uses technology to predict and stop those rodent infestations. Pretty cool stuff.
Yeah, it's pretty amazing what they can do these days. Shows they're really on top of things, using all the latest tech to get those really effective solutions.
So let's say you're ready to fight back against these ants. What are some things you can do right now, practically?
Well, like we said, prevention is huge. Look around your house, any cracks, any crevices, seal them up tight. Keep that kitchen spotless. Put away your food, wipe up any spills right away. It makes a big difference.
And if you see those ants, you can try those DIY methods, those bait stations, traps, things like that.
Yep. There are a lot of good DIY products out there. Just follow the instructions. Make sure you're using the right stuff for the kind of ants you've got.
But what if DIY isn't working? What are some signs, like red flags, that it's time to call in a pro?
Well, if you're seeing a lot of ants, all over the place, if they're showing up in different rooms, different parts of your house, or if they just don't seem to care about your DIY traps and stuff, that's when you know it's time.
And remember that story from Flick's website, the client who had both earwigs and cockroaches. Professionals, they can deal with multiple pest problems all at once.
Oh, yeah, exactly. It's like a one-stop shop for all your pest worries. They can take care of everything, give you a nice clean sweep.
So to recap, prevention is key. Try DIY for those smaller problems. But don't be afraid to call in a professional if things get out of hand.
Exactly. And remember, the more you know about ants, the better you can fight them. So keep learning, keep exploring those options, and you'll be able to get your home back. And free.
Now, here's something to think about, right? We talked about all these different ways to get rid of ants, but what about, the impact of our choices? Like, those chemical treatments work, but what about the environment? Are there some eco-friendly options we should be looking at?
Oh, yeah, that's a really important point. It's not just about getting rid of the ants right now. It's about, making sure we're not creating other problems down the line. We have to think about our environment, our health, the whole picture.
So we've talked about those chemical treatments, they work, but what about the downsides? Anything we should be aware of?
Yeah, sometimes those chemicals, they can have unintended consequences for the environment. They might hurt those beneficial insects, the good guys, or they might even contaminate the soil, the water. And if they're not used right, they can even be a risk to, pets and people. So it's something to think about, definitely.
It's not just about kicking the ants out, it's about doing it the right way so we don't cause more problems later on, right?
Exactly. That's where those eco-friendly methods come in. They use more natural ingredients, take a more targeted approach, and focus on prevention. All about minimizing that impact on the environment, keeping things balanced.
Okay, so give me some examples. What are some of these eco-friendly ant control methods?
Well, there are natural repellents, things like essential oils, peppermint, tea tree, citrus. Ants hate those smells. You can just dilute them with a bit of water, spray them around the places where you've seen ants, and they'll be like, nope, not going there.
It's like building a wall they can't stand across, a natural barrier.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And then there's diatomaceous earth. It's this natural powder made from fossilized diatoms. It's got these sharp edges. They cut through the insect's exoskeletons, makes them dehydrate and die. Brutal, but effective.
Sounds kind of intense. But is it safe for, like, kids and pets?
Yeah, diatomaceous earth is generally considered safe when used correctly. Just make sure you get the food-grade kind. The other types, they're not good to breathe in.
Good to know. So we've got natural repellents, we've got diatomaceous earth. Anything else in our eco-friendly arsenal?
Well, remember we talked about understanding ant behavior.
Yeah.
Using that knowledge to make your home less attractive to them, that's a huge part of eco-friendly pest control.
Right. So that's the clean kitchen, the stored food, the sealed up cracks.
Yep, that's it. You can also make sure to trim any plants or trees that are touching your house. That can be like a bridge for them to get inside. And don't leave out any pet food or water overnight. Ants love that stuff.
It's like we're building an ant-proof fortress. So if we put all this together, the prevention, the natural repellents, maybe some diatomaceous earth, we can get rid of ants without using those harsh chemicals.
That's the idea. And hey, if you're not sure what to do, you can always talk to a professional pest control company. One that specializes in eco-friendly solutions. They can give you some advice, recommend the best approach for your situation.
Okay, so just to wrap up, what have we learned? Understanding how ants behave, that's crucial, right? And we've got DIY methods, good for those smaller problems, prevention. And if things get serious, we call in the professionals. But the big takeaway, we got to think about the impact of our choices, the long term.
Absolutely. We want to be effective, but we also want to be responsible. Think about the environment, our health. It all matters.
Well, that about does it for our deep dive into ant control in New Zealand. Hopefully you're feeling ready to take on those ants, create a nice, peaceful, ant-free home.
That's right. Go forth and conquer. And remember, there's always more to learn, so keep asking questions, keep exploring. Knowledge is power, especially when it comes to protecting your home and the world around you.
Couldn't have said it better myself. Thanks for joining us on this deep dive. We'll catch you next time.